Hi friends, I'm just going to be cleaning out my watercolor palettes today, and since I've been thinking a lot about the topic of talent, I figured I would chat about what our ideas of talent are and how people acquire it. If you have felt talentless or maybe mediocre all your life in regards to art, but also just in all areas in general, stick around, I have something to say. First, let's just conceptualize for a second what we might mean when we talk about talent. I think overwhelmingly, talent is referred to as something a person just has rather than something they acquired. And society has this really annoying way of glorifying natural born talent or, geniuses, people who have certain affinity to certain subjects. And sure, there absolutely are a small percentage of people who are born with just incredible abilities and brains that can do and think in really exceptional ways. But those people are huge outliers. And yet we kind of use them as an example in a way of how we think about talent. We create this binary where you either are born exceptional or you aren't. And the problem with regarding something as mostly biological or ingrained is that we ignore how it actually exists in relation to our social world. Here is what I mean. In reality, I think all of us are born with small affinities towards different subjects and different topics, but we then have to work on them to develop them. The biggest difference is that not all of us have equal opportunities to explore them or the ability to recognize what they even are starting at a really young age, which is seen as desirable. So if we acknowledge that for majority of people, talent is not biological, but instead it's a development of skill over time, we have to look at who can develop those skills and how. So this brings me to two main points. Number one, our idea of talent is actually very intertwined with classism. If talent is actually just an investment of time and resources into a skill you have a natural interest in, well, guess who has more access to both time and resources? People who grew up with money, the rich. And if you have a low socioeconomic status and you have to work a ton just to survive, you probably don't have the luxury of exploring many interests. Yeah, I had certain things I wanted to do as a kid that I knew not to mention because it would require money. Or I knew that my parents would regard them as a huge waste of time. Because if you have parents who did not grow up with money and their main goal has always been, financial stability, they are way less likely to encourage hobbies or skills that can't be commodified in your future. So art is a really good example of that. There's the stereotype of the starving artist. And so art is way less likely to be an extracurricular that your parents will find potentially profitable to you in the future. So think about it. If we know that talent is actually just the ability to develop a skill, but we still view it as an innate trait, we then don't acknowledge the unfair advantage the rich have in high access to developing talent. So it just helps perpetuate classism, where the rich are considered more sophisticated or more elite, and better than everybody else. Okay, my second point is that talent and gender also interact in a similar way. Since society puts in gender binaries where boys and girls are, encouraged to explore their interests differently. So, for example, girls are much less likely to be encouraged to take up science or tech-related topics, and are more expected to use their time to help with families and household chores compared to boys. Or just think about how it's so worrisome to parents if their sons show interest in traditional female skills and interests like makeup or fashion. I mean, times are changing, but these things still ring true. Now, there's a lot of other connections that could be made between talent and society or other forms of oppression, but I'm going to stop here for the sake of video length. But how does this all relate to art, or maybe to your own feelings of talentlessness? Taking everything I just said, I want to encourage you to leave that feeling behind. You don't need to be born with talent. You don't need to be good at something since you were young. You can decide at any moment what you want to be good at and just go for it, because chances are you may have not had good opportunities growing up, or you didn't have good encouragement, and it led you to never developing confidence in yourself or your skills. Maybe you were told that boys or girls aren't allowed to be interested in the thing you were interested in. The thing is, it's never too late to pick up something you've always had an inclination to. And I need to hear this just as much as anyone, because 6 months ago I sat down and I decided that art and editing was going to be something I was good at. It didn't come supernaturally or beautifully to me before, but I've always had an interest in them, and I never explored them because I always felt like I was going to be mediocre, or I already was mediocre. And especially in terms of art, I think the concept of natural born talent is very disproportionately applied to it. People act as though artistic ability is something you either have or you just don't. There's very little room for any in between, and singing is a really great example of that. Most people think you either can or can't sing, and that's it. I know that's certainly how I used to think until a few years ago. I kind of just realized that you could learn, like you could take singing lessons and get way better. My mind was blown. It really helped me to realize that just because I can't, naturally put a pencil to paper and make a masterpiece right away does not mean that I can't draw. It just means I can't draw the masterpiece yet. It's also been incredibly eye-opening to realize that you don't have to really be amazing at something to do it. You can suck at singing and still have to sing. You can suck at dancing and still dance, and you can be not amazing at drawing and still draw. Not everything needs to be about, the talent end game. The process or journey of something is beautiful enough as it is. So if growing up you never felt like you were good at anything, or you've always felt this overwhelming sense of talentlessness, those things don't have to be an absolute truth. You can just grab on to a talent, because talent is just skill and anyone can develop a skill. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this little ramble. I hope it was helpful to somebody out there. And I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.